My name is Ivan Rodriguez. I had a near-death experience on August 15th, 2021, falling from a hiking accident. So my family and I, we were hiking in a place called Panama Rock. That's in the southern tier of New York, just above Pennsylvania. And we were climbing up a boulder, my brother and I, along with some other ones. And I was so cautious for everyone's step that I misplaced my footing and I tumbled down about 15 feet. First thing that I hit on the way down was a boulder to the face. And after that, everything went black. That was the very beginning. It was a life-changing event because my daughter was about 1 month away from being born. So when it happened, I thought I literally missed her life. And so I went to a place, there was pure darkness. There was nothing there. You know, it was feeling of fear, feeling of anxiety, feeling of loneliness, feeling of, again, I thought I missed her life because when I was in this place, I was convinced I was there for thousands of years. Terrified. I really was. I thought it was a place I would never get out of. It felt endless. And there was a voice that spoke to me there. And interesting enough, it was my voice, but it didn't speak to me as if I was familiar with it. It spoke to me as if I was a stranger to it. And it was urgent for me to get up. And it was telling me to get up repeatedly. And I felt like I couldn't. I felt like I was being depleted, like as if my battery was being drained. And towards the end of that, I felt like I had to make a decision. Was it worth me being in these feelings and reflecting on my life? Or was it worth me letting it all go, telling everyone how much I love them? And that's where it began. So when I was in midair, honestly, it felt like time was slowing down. I felt like I was in midair longer than what I really was. And I was just thinking about my daughter and my family, and the way down was long enough as is. My wife, I heard her screaming, and it was a scream that you will never forget. Like it came from the pit of her soul. On the way down, I was just thinking like all the things that I wanted to do, I never did. And it's more so about like, so my father and I, we never really had a great relationship. And it was also thoughts of, I wish I was able to apologize to him before this even came. And when I did hit my face on the rock and everything went blank, I thought I didn't have the opportunity. So in that place, I had moments of regret. I had moments of feeling lonely, just wishing I could have been more to my family than who I chose to be. It went from, so I was in this place, I had this out of body experience where it was pure darkness. And again, to me, it felt like thousands of years. It felt like multiple of thousands of years. And it felt like every single year that passed me, I grew hungrier and I grew thirstier. It felt like my battery was getting depleted, just 1% at a time. And towards the end of it, I felt like I had nothing left to give. And the decision that I had to make was I was able to see my family's faces. I seen my parents' face, I seen my brother's face, I seen my girl's faces. And I felt like it was waiting for me to make a decision. Do I really go back and tell them how much I love them, or do I just let this all go? And the decision that I decided to make was I wanted to come back and tell everyone how much I love them. I wanted to ask my father for forgiveness, and I wanted to, build a relationship with him. And, I just wanted to be better than who I was. And the moment I made that decision, I actually was able to come back into my body. And before I opened up my eyes, I was actually talking shit in my head, because I thought everyone will be around me except for him, because again, I believe we had a rocky relationship. But the truth is, when I opened up my eyes, he was the only one there. Everyone else froze. Everyone else was in shock. My brother did come afterwards, but he too was on top of the boulder, so it took him more time. But it was just the significance of me thinking that he wouldn't be there at all, to him being the only one there. God really showed me something that day. He really did. From there, I was taken up about a month afterwards. Like I was terrified of that night, of that event happening, because I couldn't explain it. And there was, at the time, I never heard of anything like that. I couldn't find anyone to relate. So I really felt alone during this process. And it didn't matter how hard I tried to explain it. It just seemed like nobody was able to relate to me. Not having any answers is what scared me the most. So that happened in August of 2021. In September of 2021, my daughter was born. And now in October of 2021, there was a moment where my dad and I were able to sit down. It was about 3 weeks at the time. And I remember he had come over randomly. He wanted to give her some gifts. And there was just him and I in the house. And that was my moment to ask him for forgiveness, because this entire time, metaphorically speaking, this entire time, I wanted him to give me $10,000, but I never got it. But it's not because he didn't want to give it to me. It's just that he didn't have that $10,000 to give. So by me realizing that, I sat him down and I asked him for forgiveness, and I made amends between him and I, realizing that what we had in between us this entire time is not worth it, because we're here only for a moment and we never know when life can be taken. We created amends between us, and we've been building a relationship together ever since. So along this process, so that happened in October of 21, and sometime within that same week, I had these I had these visions one night. I was getting ready for bed, and it was like I was sucked into my own mind, and I was able to see a library as big as you can see, and it went on forever. And all these books were coming towards me, and I was reading them as fast as they came. And even though I was reading them, I felt like I already knew what they were saying. So it was like I was beginning to remember again. And from there, I was transitioned into another vision where I seen everyone as a soul. And me too, I too was a soul. And we were in a very dark and dim lit place. And we were very crammed and stuck together. We couldn't really move. And it was dark and dim lit. And I remember the feeling was a feeling of confusion. And the place there was so confusing that we didn't understand why we were confused to begin with. It just kept on going. And I felt like this pull on me specifically. And there was clouds above us that none of us can break through. And I was pulled through the clouds, and I was placed into another realm that was full of light. And in that place, there was only very few. And the place went on forever. And you only seen one or two sporadically here and there. And I remember there was a light coming from behind me. And I tried to look at it, but I was forced to give it my back out of respect. And when I looked down at myself, that source filled me with the light. I've never felt like that in my life. Never. There's not a word for it. The only words that you can describe that is home. That's truly what it felt like. It was the epitome of home. The epitome of feeling safe, the epitome of feeling everything's okay, the epitome of love, everything that you expect a home to be. It was the epitome of that. And I remember the sky was warm, and it was pink and yellows and reds and oranges. It was perfect. It was literally perfect. Like there was not a flaw in that place at all. Clouds were perfect. The sky was perfect. Everything there. It was the most perfect scene I have ever experienced in my life. I've never seen such. And I remember coming back from that vision, I just had this understanding that I believe everybody is looking for the same thing. And what the real problem is in the world is that we're not stepping out of our own shoes to understand somebody else's perspective. We desire the world to understand our perspective, and that's why everybody's confused, because we're not the ones who's not doing it first, if that makes sense. It was life changing. And the next day, everything went blank for me. No memory of who I used to be, everything was gone. And that's when my life really changed. It was interesting because I would look at past pictures of myself and I would try and think of memories that I had and felt no connection. It was a moment where I feel like I really have a second chance in life. And this time I have an opportunity to do it right. Not by my standards, by the standards of the universe and what God is to me. So I didn't know what to think of death. I was terrified of it, yeah. But I think my fear came more so because I didn't understand it or what it truly was. I would hear stories of what happens when you leave and, where you're going to go and things like that, sure. And those are the things that really put fear in me at the time. But experiencing it, I realized how peaceful it truly is. And there's not anything to be afraid of. It's just another part of life. The same way that we're born and the same way that we live life, everything has its place. And God allows death, so why should we fear it? There's nothing to fear. Life moves on. Energy never died, and neither do we. Truthfully, it seemed as though I was standing next to the sun. That's the only thing I can give an accurate description of. It seemed as if I was standing literally next to the sun. And the energy that was being output from that, I had no choice but to give it my back out of respect, out of reverence. But it filled me up. It totally filled me up. I felt for the first time my battery was at 100%. and things just began to click. I said, okay, I understand this now. So I believe that was the source to it all. And I do believe that the sun is the source to it all in our galaxy, because without the sun, what would exist? I came to an understanding where, a lot of people believe it's an SON that we're looking for, but it's really the SUN that we should be understanding is the source of everything that's here. We're connected to it. We're connected to everything. Without the sun, there would be nothing. The sun is in the beginning and it's at the end. It's in the first and it's the last. I wouldn't necessarily say I have vision since then, but I've been gaining a deeper understanding of what life is, how we're connected, why we're connected, what is this experiencing that we're experiencing, why are we here to begin with. I realize everything in nature is God. Everything in nature. If you're an organic being and you are a part of nature, you are a part of this existence. What I've experienced was an ego death. And to release the ego is to understand that you're connected to something that's so much bigger than yourself. It's realizing that your ego is a very small drop in a very big ocean. And our egos want to keep us, like it wants to keep us thinking that we need it. But the truth is, we don't need it. It needs us. That's the trickery behind it. And it'll fool us, and it'll fill us with fears, and it'll fill us with the things that we're afraid of. It kind of like gives us threats in our own minds, like, don't do that. It's just learning how to surrender the ego. So what happened with me is, during my experience, I was truly convinced that I was dying at that moment. So my ego left. My ego shattered. It was gone. So I do believe that God had something bigger for me. God needed me to experience this tragedy in order to realize my blessing. So now, one thing that I've learned is, in this process, is what is spirituality. Everybody has an idea of what spirituality is, but truthfully, I feel like everybody is still confused on the idea. I believe what spirituality is not learning how to be spirit. We're already spirit as is. It's learning how to be human. That's why we're here. That's why we're in this body. We're here to have a human experience and learn how to make mistakes and learn how to build from your mistakes and learning how to be something greater than what you were yesterday. Learning the values of respect and learning the values of compassion and learning the values of honor and trust and truth and all these things. That's what the love of God is. That's what the word of God is. And never, personally for me, I never had anything to do with studying a book, because nature already was here before books. And if you look at what nature is the good, bad, and the ugly. And without the bad, you will never know what's good. And that's just simply the ugly truth. So you need both. It's not up to us to decide what side we want to stand on, but it's up to us to look at both sides and decide what's correct for the next situation. I feel everyone today in the world is everybody's just pointing the finger. But the problem is that everybody will have a slightly different opinion on what they think is good and what they think is evil. So the battle in the world today isn't necessarily about good and evil. It's about courage and fear. Will we have the courage to stand up and do what's right? Not just for us as humankind, but to do what's right for us as a species on this planet, species and the other creatures on this planet. We have to do what's right for everyone. Or do we still have the fear that's going to shut us down from doing what's right? I'm not sure exactly where we're going to go, but one thing I do know is that we're energy. So the sun feeds the plant, and the plant feeds the animal, and the animal feeds the man. But the energy of the plant never disappeared. It just transitioned from one stage into the next. So I believe, depending on how we conduct our lives in this life, will direct on where we're going to go in the next life. So if we choose to offend people, if we choose to bring people down and not expose love to them, then our next life will be the victims of what we chose in this life. But if we choose love in this life, and we choose compassion, and we choose respect, and we choose to build one another up, then it'll be fruitful continuing into your next life. So where? I really think that's up to the individual and how they choose to live life now. My recovery, actually, as tragic as that was, I didn't have any, the most that happened to me was my shoulder popped out of place and I had some shoulder issues, but that I didn't need surgery or anything. Actually, speaking of, there was a moment where I remember I was in bed one night and I was sleeping, and I had this energy, like that saturated me from head to toe. And I don't know how to explain it, but it literally felt like I was healing of everything that was wrong with me. So aside from that, my recovery was pretty quick. At that time, I was really looking deep because we were pregnant with our daughter, and I needed to figure out who I was, to know who I am, because one thing that I didn't want to do is I didn't want to make the same mistakes that happened between my father and I for me to happen with my daughter. So at that time, I was really soul searching and digging deep and trying to put my own pieces together. So, when she's here, I can know what direction I have to guide her in. And also, too, before it happened, I remember I was at my grandparents' house and I was hearing them speak and things like that. And I just heard them talking amongst themselves. They weren't telling me stories. They were telling each other stories of memories of how my dad was raised. And that's his story, so I'm not going to go into that. But it brought a lot of clarity to me, and I felt like that brought me a lot of closure because it began to click on all the things I didn't understand. I'm like, okay, now I get why things happen for that reason. Because there was a moment in time where I did believe in that I was chosen, I was a special one and things like that. But truthfully, God does things for a reason. And if I were to fill my mind and believe that I am the chosen one, then I feel like that'll build another ego. And in order for us to find who and what we are to the universe, is to lessen that ego, not to rebuild another one. So yeah, there was a moment in time I did believe that. I chose to let that go because I was blinding myself by putting this title in front of me. And I realized that that's not what's important. Everything happens for a reason, whether we realize it now or realize it later. And I do believe that God shines light even on the cracks of cement to grow a flower. One thing that I would like to share is, truthfully, we are nature. We are just another form and another reflection of what the universe is. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to worry about. You're always taken care of, even when it seems like it's not. Now, anyone who is looking for God or looking for, whatever it is that you believe in, looking for love, you have to offer it to yourself first. And you do that through health. It's physical health, mental health, and emotional health. And by combining all three is to realize what love truly is. And the reason is because if you love yourself at 50%, you can never give somebody 100%. If you love yourself at 80%, you can never give somebody 100%. You have to give yourself 100% in order to know what it is to offer 100% to somebody else. That's what love is. So it's learning how to take care of the mind, it's learning how to take care of the body, and it's learning how to take care of your emotions, learning how to educate the mind with information, not just stories and beliefs. Because truth is the absence of belief, and belief is the absence of truth. They will never be allies in the same sentence. Never. And if anybody is curious on what the Word of God is, the Word of God is right in front of us. You are it. You're writing your own story. Just make sure you're writing your words wisely. If you need guidance, look up to the stars, because our Father God is simply the sky. Not because of any belief, but because the sky is what unifies every single planet and every single galaxy in the universe. There's nothing bigger than it. Anybody's looking for what we call spirit of God. Well, again, look towards nature, because when we look at the wind, how can nothing make everything move? And without that nothing, there'll be nothing to exist. I'm not sure if I'm choosing the right words for this, but the miracles are right in front of us. We just have to take off the blinders and realize what is. Originally, growing up, I didn't believe in any God. I just thought that we were a complete accident. I had a very standard mindset on that. I did go to church when I was about 19 or so, 19 or 20, and I was there until about 23, 24. And I decided to leave because at that time I was engaged and the engagement didn't fall through. So I just had a real rough time dealing with life. So I decided to step back and figure my own things out. So the way that it's shifted now, I don't believe that religion is necessarily a bad thing, because I believe that the core to every single belief is love. I do believe that there are good teachings in religion, But I also believe the people who are teaching the religions today, I'm not sure if they understand fully what they're teaching. And I believe that's what brings a lot of confusion. It's not my place to call anything good or bad because that's obviously opinionated. But considering the state of the world today and considering that we need to just come together, we need to realize that half of us are looking at a 6 and half of us are looking at a 9. But ultimately, we just need to stand together and realize that we're looking at the same thing. Definitely do extensive research on anything that you believe in, and also do extensive research on anything that you don't believe in. Don't just think that something sounds good and you're going to run with it, because then you'd be a fool. And always look at everything from the eyes of the Father, because from the eyes of the Father, if you have 3 children, one is great, one is okay, and one is horrible, which one do you love more? The truth is, you're not going to love any of them more. You're going to love them all equally. So, from the eyes of the Father, every single life on this planet has equal value. So, to think that there is one man above you, or you think that you have people below you, is a lie. The truth is, every man is equal. Every man is a Christ if he chooses to be, because every man is love according to his heart. And if you're not sure what the word of God is or where to find it, look towards your heart. If any man tells you that your heart is wicked, who is any man to tell you that if it's your heart? It doesn't make sense. God gave us a heart for a reason, and if God is love and love is housed in the heart, that's where home is. That's where our heaven is. I've never walked into 2 houses and they looked exactly the same. That's foolishness. So why would it look the same in heaven? Everyone has a free will to decide what they want their heaven to be. Just do it by the golden rule. Treat people as you wish to be treated. As simple as that.